Okay, great. Look, Philippe, pleasure to have you with us. Could you provide some context to when you joined Amazon in 2000 and the state of the network in Europe?
Yeah, back to 2000, there was we just started France, basically. France opened in end of August, 29th of August of 2000. And there was only two countries open, which were UK and Germany, which were both open. They both opened in 1998. And when I say open, it's difficult. It's not really open because Amazon bought two companies, one in the UK, one in Germany, to start up their business in those countries. In France, one of the particularities was that they just cannot buy anybody. There was nobody to buy. And therefore, they started from scratch. And everything from scratch, from everything on the catalog side of gathering, obviously, because at that time, we were only selling 4 products. And it was books, obviously, and CD, DVD, and software and video games, basically. That was the only thing which were sold on Amazon at that time, which was the case, by the way, everywhere in the world, even in the US in 2000, but in UK and Germany too. Therefore, there was 3 websites, and there were 3 fulfillment centers, one in the UK, one in Germany, and the one that we just opened in France, basically, when I joined. And I've been hired to build the logistics for France, directly in France. And I set up the first fulfillment center and the first distribution network.
What are the specific differences between the way that Europe is structured versus the US in terms of logistics and networks?
Not much, by the way, if you consider each country as a country. Therefore, if you compare France and the US and UK and Germany, there is not much difference. Therefore, originally there was one website, one fulfillment center. Now, truly in the US, I believe in 2000, there were maybe 3 or 4 fulfillment centers at that time already. There was Seattle, one of the historic one. There was one in Reno, in Nevada, and there was one in Delaware that I visited when I just joined. And there was maybe 1 or 2 other, but there was no more. But there was no difference in the structure. Basically, each of the website has its own catalog, and each of the website has one, or like the US, several fulfillment center. Basically, but in Europe, it was 1 for 1. There was 1 fulfillment center per website, and the product were both in the fulfillment center and were sent to everyone ordering on the website they've chosen. Therefore, for example, if you are French and then you want to buy on Amazon.co.uk, you were able to do it, and everything you had to log on Amazon.co.uk. You will receive from UK basically the product you bought. That was the structure, and the same obviously in Germany and in France, and the US the same, by the way. Which means each website we're saving all around the world by definition. Therefore, we're able to ship everywhere, and but you had to go on the website you were sourcing the product from, basically.
And how has the network evolved in Europe?
In Europe, it took almost 10 years, but we morphed it in this relation of a one-to-one relation between fulfillment center and website. We morphed the what we call the European fulfillment network, where every product in Europe could be seen in every website in Europe and could be fulfilled from any fulfillment center in Europe, more or less. And of course, there are some restrictions. For example, the electronic product, like with the UK plug, you cannot sell them on continental Europe and vice versa, by the way. Therefore, of course, when the product is not allowed to be sold because it's not compatible to the market, they were not. But globally, at the large scale, I will say that's now a unionized market where products are stored anywhere in Europe and fulfilled to anywhere in Europe. Obviously, it started from this structure, this country structure, and there is still a huge tied between the website and the country fulfillment center, because you want to get the product closer to the customer where they're buying. Therefore, most of the French products are still in France, and Germany the same, and UK the same. And now, also in Europe, on top of it, 2 additional websites have been opened, end of 2000, or 2008 and 9, basically, or 9 and 10 maybe, and Italy and Spain, where we grew again. And after, some other websites have been opened, not necessarily with fulfillment center, but just with fulfilled from elsewhere, basically. Like the more recent is the Dutch one, the Amazon.nl, where there is no fulfillment center yet in Netherlands, but most of the products are arriving from Germany, mostly there.
Is it very important to have a .nl website or a specific country website in Europe to give you an advantage for Amazon?
The only advantage is the language. You know, I mean, that's one of the big difference. I mean, if you want to compare the US and Europe, you know, to continue, there was really one of the things that was, you know, in one hand we were speaking about US, in the other hand we were speaking about Europe as a region for Amazon, but Europe was still an aggregation of countries. And one of the big differentiator obviously is the language. And we cannot have one website for all, and is the reason why we have those websites. And where Netherlands has been a very big customer, the country, as particularly the Amazon.co.uk, the UK website, and obviously some of the Amazon.de as well, because there's a lot of German English speaker and some German speaker in Netherlands. That for a long time we thought that it was not necessary to get a website. Now, indeed, when you get this last thing of having the website on the language, that helps a lot and improve a lot the conversion, obviously, and it's open to even more people in the country. That's the only reason. It's the reason why that Italy and Spain have been started, and Amazon is working to more and more open other websites where they're not, basically, and that's one of the key elements is the language.
Mm. And so do you think because of that language advantage on the website for Amazon, do you think Amazon has a much larger competitive advantage in Europe than the US due to their network? Or how do you compare Amazon's potential lead versus competitors in Europe and US?
Yeah, I think, no, US is still ahead of Europe in terms of competitive advantage. In the US, Amazon is very well advanced. There's several aspects. First, obviously, it started earlier. It started more or less 3 to 5 years earlier, and even Italy and Spain later. And this language issue, however, is becoming an issue because it's preventing to be all over Europe instantaneously. You know, when the US by default, you can sell anywhere in the US. They don't speak English. There is even some version of the Amazon website. You can get the Amazon.com website in Spanish, you know, to adapt to the Spanish population in the US, which is pretty large, particularly in the south. But in Europe, you have to open those country by country, more or less. Of course, as long as people speak English, you can go on every website and at Amazon, because most of the website has the operator to translate it in English. But if you want in your native language, unfortunately, Amazon has to do the effort. What they have done and what they continue to do. Therefore, it's the reason why while Amazon is quite well penetrated in every European country, but still, I believe the fact they lack some of the language, they are missing opportunity. Therefore, the opportunity will be even bigger when they will start to get every website in the proper language. The reason why I think there's still a lag of penetration all over. If you were taking the entire population of Europe and the penetration of Amazon in the households, I would say it's behind, you know, because there are some countries in the East, particularly, which are not covered yet. You know, because today Amazon covers pretty much all the West countries. The Nordics are not covered the same way, but Nordics are 70% English spoken and very penetrated into that. But that's, I'm sure that by the language they will add more, and they're not in Portuguese yet as well. They are not in Greek, you know. Therefore, those will be pretty large population good market to expand to. They are in Turkey now, however, you know, it's a little bit further, but at least they make that for the 80 million, 90 million Turkish.
Yeah. So taking a step back then and looking specifically at inbound and how inbound was structured originally with only the first party inventory. How did you look at organizing that process?
Yeah, I mean, not much differently that it is today, by the way. I mean, the process of the inbound has been always structured the same way. There are purchase order, and you receive against purchase order whatever come to you. Therefore, the classical 1P business has been structured that Amazon order and gives you a time to get delivered with an address to deliver to with a purchase order. You are fulfilling your order, you're delivering. Most of the Amazon, you still organize yourself the transportation. Over time, that has moved about a lot. In the US, for example, we took a lot of ownership of the inbound, therefore we were coming and picking up from you, but now there is a balance. It's happened in Europe as well, but still in Europe, the tendency is still you deliver to the fulfillment center, the address that you've been given. When your product arrives, we are reconciling and scanning every single item against the purchase order and putting in the inventory basically. And before that, you have to take an appointment, obviously, for your truck, for your delivery, or your carrier have to do it, and you deliver the day. We are reconciling against the purchase order. We take everything we have ordered. We could reject, obviously, things which have not been ordered. And ultimately, we pay the invoice, and the product is stored in the fulfillment center. If you take that, that has not changed basically. That always been like that. After the way we store the product has slightly changed over time. And Amazon also on the way of the scanning, for example, or there were some processes which have been developed with vendors which were we had a good accuracy and delivery, for example, which is what we call a license plate receive. You know, when the vendor has a good level of logistic optimization already, is able to tell you that in a box they put the item, they are able to label the box with a license plate number, and they are able to give you by EDI what's the content of each box. Now that enable you to start scanning only once the box and automatically receive the inventory which is in the box, but which means that the vendors has a very good level of accuracy as well, you know. But we have vendors like that where the connection have been working for long with them. They have very strong logistic as well and supply chain, and they are able to provide those numbers, which have helped a lot to put in the inventory in our fulfillment center by streamlining the process basically and avoiding scanning every single item. But they always been scanned once, and you should also think about Amazon is receiving whatever, but 1P particularly has never received 20 pallets of the same product. That's very rare. Now there are some products for sure that we do receive them, but the reality of Amazon is a large catalog where we have very few items per SKU, which means that you receive always by detailed product. It's pieces, is a few pieces of each of the product, is rarely boxes of full of the same product.
How did the inbound process change as you rolled out Fulfilled by Amazon?
Yeah, it was interesting. It didn't change much. The backbone of the process is still exactly the same. If you look at that purchase order, receiving it's a purchase order and storing. When you take the FBA, okay, there is no purchase order in that case, obviously, because the vendor is sending his product. But the vendor has to create, however, what we could. I don't remember exactly the name, but we could say it's a purchase order. It's creating a shipment basically and saying, I'm going to send you all those products, which for us going to be the thing we're going to reconcile against, because that's the inventory which is given. Therefore, it's doing exactly the same thing, is creating those labels, and it's maybe close to the FBA process, except that we the license plate process. He's gonna create these shipments and say, I've got all this inventory to send to you. And every time that the vendor is assigned to a fulfillment center as well, the same way that the vendor will be, we're gonna tell you that's your fulfillment center, and they're gonna deliver the product to it. Now it's gonna create this shipment, put everything on his own carrier, and Amazon provides solution as well with labels. You know, you can UPS or those kind of carrier that could come and pick up and deliver to us. But basically, you're gonna create your shipment with all your product. You're gonna record it in the vendor portal, which automatically Amazon knows that they will receive those products. When your shipment arrive, we reconcile. We're just opening up and scanning everything the same way that we receive from 1P, except that it's not against a purchase order. It's just again your own shipment data. And after we store exactly the same way that the 1P without any differentiation. Therefore, the process has not changed much, because there is still, I would say the two differences is no purchase order, because you create the purchase order, but you cannot send product without creating anything. It's the reason why there's still a step there. It's not that you send it doesn't matter and that it arrives on Amazon Manage. If you have not declare or enter in your system that you're gonna send product, we will not receive the product. We'll consider we don't know about. And the second difference as well is you don't have necessarily appointment, particularly when you start using the carrier, the parcel carrier, you know, and that goes in the flow, and we don't know necessarily when. There's no date as much as we have for the 1P basically. Therefore, that's a little bit more variation in terms of when, what is gonna come when basically.
What was the biggest challenge in onboarding so many vendors through this program at Amazon?
There was two sets. First, the platform has to be the people have to do the job themselves basically, to self onboard, but self also generate their label and self create their shipment. Therefore, to really have a platform where the people could manage everything by themselves without having to interact with people at Amazon. System, yes, but not people. That was one of the challenge, but which have been pretty well designed from the beginning, which there was not much. The challenge which remained today, and has always been and remain, and it goes up and down, is the fact that the accuracy of the people to do the right job of sending product which have label, because you have to label your product when you send to Amazon with the right label, and rightly doing so basically. You know, put the label first, but also put the right label. Therefore, there is a more, if you order from a 1P vendor, any supplier or vendors, there is usually a high level of accuracy of what you're going to receive. The barcode match the product, usually because they are manufactured by them more frequently and so on. In the case of FBA, unfortunately, that most likely that there is mismatch being done, there are some products missing. Therefore, all these points are the one, and not intentionally, just because the people are not used to, or it's an additional step for them. Therefore, one of the big challenge which we've seen at the beginning, but still now, and now in different level, but it's still because the number of vendor in FBA is still growing. Therefore, we cannot say, you know, it's not like we've been dealing with this vendor for now 10 years. I mean, some, yes, and obviously those ones have been over time very good and performing well, but every day, every week, there are more vendors coming, which they have their learning curve to adapt to that. Therefore, it's still a higher level of inaccuracy from the FBA vendor, which is still a challenge for the fulfillment center, basically.
And do you think there's any other real operational limitations that would prevent Amazon from scaling FBA apart from this sortation or misplacing challenge?
No, after that, the only challenge is the capacity, obviously. And because when it was, you know, the idea of FBA was to utilize some of the empty capacity in space, but also capacity in throughput of our own logistic to optimize it, you know, particularly off peak when the rest of the year. And when that was very small, there was always, you know, a kind of always enough capacity for that because it was small. As it grew, pretty much, obviously the capacity now has to be very managed and accounted for. Therefore, one of the remaining challenge of Amazon is scaling rightly his network to make sure that they have the right, they have enough space for those FBA vendors. Because also what is important is there is no limitation kind of with an FBA vendor. You can, when you subscribe, you say, of course, what kind of business you're gonna do, but there is no commitment or limitation necessarily, which Amazon sometimes had to put some limitation over time because the FBA were bigger, and the one which were really shifting considerably some volume, and above and beyond what was Amazon was expected, there was some discussion. Therefore, the one remaining challenge to scale is to make sure that they have always the capacity for the FBA vendor. And the reason why you've seen as well the policy of inventory, or even the rates, of all, because you pay for the inventory you have in the warehouse, and the rates have changed by time. Therefore, if you leave the inventory too long, the rate increase quite significantly, because Amazon has to manage that. Amazon could adjust stock indefinitely, basically. That's what I believe is one of the remaining challenge, but it doesn't prevent Amazon to grow this business. It just requires a little bit more attention of how to project and scale it properly, because now we don't do that. When we really started, we were doing that on the back of our plan of 1P. And it was, okay, that's going to be a few percent on top. It's fine. Now you cannot just do that. I mean, if you don't plan for the growth of FBA, you won't have the space, because FBA is quite large.
How would you approach that from a network perspective then? I mean, obviously, like you said, you can change the pricing of the inventory in the warehouse to move it quicker. But would you look at adding different fulfillment centers or warehouses, or specifically for other non-Amazon customers to increase the capacity? How would you approach that?
Right, exactly. That's exactly the different way that Amazon approach it. First, obviously, now there is a proper planning for FBA inventory, which is being done by the FBA team, which are trying to gather what they do. Basically, they work half with large FBA vendors, which are pretty significant amount with us, where we can have a real process, planning process, where we ask them, what do you plan, what do you forecast to be? And after, they are also working statistically with onboarding and seeing that what kind of size of vendors and what they expect on board. And they are doing basically a planning. And FBA is like any product line in the company. FBA has its own planning, where he's coming back to the fulfillment, the operation at Amazon, and telling them and booking kind of some space already in advance based on their need. And the planning of the expansion of the network now is done including those numbers. And yes, today there are, I'm sure in Europe or in the US for sure, there are many warehouses that if you are looking, they are only for FBA. If you are taking the space taken by FBA in each of the country even, or in the US or in Europe, and you are dividing as a percentage and number of sites, you will discover there is many sites which are entirely FBA, basically, or have been built only for FBA need.
And I suppose the next step could be non-Amazon vendors or customers or outside customers, right, to increase that?
I don't think so. It's not, I don't think so, because Amazon FBA is it's come back to the philosophy of Amazon. Amazon does logistics not because they found that it's the most profitable business in Earth, because the most profitable business in Earth, they found it. It's called the cloud computing. Therefore, Amazon just do logistics because that's an enabler of business in retail, and it's the reason why I'm trying to. You need to think about Amazon do it if they can first benefit from it as retailer, and secondly, when whatever they add could help what they do for their retail business to lower the cost, particularly enabling a service. In the fulfillment center, the max optimization of a fulfillment center is the box that Amazon is growing now, which is between 80 to 100,000 square meter box. Those are the big fulfillment centers. They've been deployed now in the US, slightly bigger because there is space, and in Europe a little bit condensed, in Japan even, but a kind of optimal size for a fulfillment center that when you fill one, you don't have a benefit to have another one. You need to restart from scratch. You need to have a new director of the fulfillment center in the entire structure. Therefore, there is no scaling effect of that. In that case, why would they start opening fulfillment center to give to other? Because first, that will give other the fulfilling excellence that Amazon is able to provide, and with no other benefit, with no other direct benefit. What would be? Now you can charge very excellent fulfillment, but that would be likely more expensive than 3PL, basically. Maybe done better, but most likely more expensive, and nobody would sign necessarily. And lastly, I think as well, if you are a real competitor of Amazon, you're not selling on Amazon, why would you give your competitor in selling your logistic and be relying and depending on him? That makes no sense. It's the reason why I don't think that Amazon will. What Amazon has done historically, but it was a tie, is, for example, if you were vendors, if you were a seller that want to sell which were selling on Amazon, want to give the FBA, but having your own website, and you didn't want to split your inventory. And I know Amazon even went backward into that, because when it's been started, it was very frequent, and we can ship your order from your own website, and that was done. It's still being done for historical seller, but it's not offered even everywhere in every website basically anymore, because again, that's not something that Amazon willing to do too much. Therefore, I would say that Amazon will not step out and starting to just do logistic, because that makes no sense to them to do it directly if that doesn't benefit their business, retail business.
So when you see them moving out in like the Amazon freight business, or shipping shippers products for their carrying, that's because it reduces the cost for their internal logistics.
Exactly. That's the final is the reason why fulfillment there is no now transportation. That's different, because that's fulfillment is a medium size, even a small size business optimization. Transportation, any kind of them, obviously, it's a very, very large. And as more you can bring, better it is, and you optimize. If you want to fill a boat with container, and if you are able to fill a full boat, you have a leverage to negotiate the price. That in that case, you may want to take other product to fill your own boat, because you will lower the cost for you and for the other, and there is a benefit. The last mile is exactly the same situation. As more you pour item in a certain density, better your cost will be in delivery. Therefore, you better to aggregate other volume when you've not reached yet the density which is the best for the area. Is the reason why that, yes, in that case, the slight difference would be Amazon will open if there is an opportunity to take advantage on the lowering its own cost by doing so. And in that case, yes, that become a way to having a lower cost in distributing their own product. That benefits their retail business.
Mm-hmm. Before we get on to discuss the last mile, just inside the warehouse and picking and sorting, and can you just outline the principles Amazon use to organize inventory inside a fulfillment center?
Yeah, there is basically it's inside. Amazon has different type of buildings basically that they organize. Even upstream is there are different size of building which are linked, type of building which are mostly linked to the type of product, or at least the size of the product. And Amazon has a two big split, what they call sortable and non-sortable, which is roughly the sortable is 30 centimeter by 30 centimeter by 40. It's a large box between just below or above a microwave oven box or something like that, which basically is sortable because it was meant to go on conveyor, where the other were too large to go on conveyor. It's a pure arbitrary choice, which have been made very early, by the way, by Amazon, and based on the conveyor, some optimization they had, and Amazon decided to do that. Therefore, in the network of Amazon, you have sortable building and non-sortable building. Because non-sortable building, most likely they would have racks, for example, and they're gonna manage large box, large size box, sometimes heavy. And you get a third category, which what they call the heavy bulky, the white glove or heavy bulky, which are most likely to be washing machine and fridge and stuff like that, which definitely is two-man handling and even sometimes with equipment. Therefore, those are the three main categories. Amazon has segregated also a last one, which was the shoes and apparel, because they are particularly for the hanging garments, stuff like that. They are very specific fulfillment or storage method and automation that could be linked to. But that's upstream. Each of the building after, they are pretty much the same for each type of the product. The biggest part is still the sortable. Amazon sells more than 85% to 90% of what is sold on Amazon is sortable indeed. That to give you is the reason why you will find a huge number of sites of sortable. Those sites are the typical one of Amazon because we started with it for the books. They have shelves, mostly multi-story shelf, and multi-story where the people walk into to pick up the product. And in that, the shelf could be different size. There is a small shelf or large shelf, basically. They have a few pallets as well. And they have also some pallets racks for some replenishment for the high rotation one. Those are the structure of the sortable. The non-sort, there are much less shelves. Because some large product could go still in shelf, but mostly that would be a pallet side, racks or pallet on the floor. More traditional picking like you could find in every traditional warehouse. And the heavy bulky would be even sometimes with mass pallet, even no racks for the large item. Of course, when you compare in terms of size of the volume, as I say, 85 to 90% are the non-sort, but as a number of fulfillment center, the non-sort are the larger because they are huge volume. Therefore, in terms of space, they may be today in the network of Amazon, 50% of the site are non-sort and 50 are sortable because of the space of each of the product in each category. But that is how it's organized. And inside, basically, you have a receive area, which is pretty much common again, adapted to the product. The sortable, you get conveyor and people are receiving, put totes in conveyor which go in this big tower, and in non-sort is more done by forklift, basically. That's it. That's the major difference. And after the ultimate change, which has come later, is the automated side and the less automated side. There are a few historical manual where people go even with carts, and there are still some of them at the more than 10, 15 years old side, and to the new one now, which are the Kiva enabled side, where obviously that the machine, nobody go really in the aisle of this big tower. This is the robots go and pick up the shelves to bring to the people, even to store or to pick basically the product.
Mm. And is there any advantage that a vertical specific competitor could have against Amazon in terms of sorting and managing inventory in a fulfillment center? For example, pet food comes to mind, where you have Zooplus in Germany or Chewy in the US, where they have they sell online pet food only. And like, can a company or vertical like that have an advantage over Amazon due to the designs and organization of the warehouse or fulfillment center?
Yeah, I'm sure they are, because if you are one of the things I didn't mention, which was very key, maybe that been historically like that at Amazon, is all products are stored randomly in their fulfillment center. Mm. There is no order. There is not, you don't find the same product there. And no, randomly. After, the only constraint that you have is a fresh product which needs temperature control. There are some, and not necessarily fresh or frozen, but even some of the food which are dry food but need a certain temperature, not excessive of 30 or whatever. And hazardous material as well. I've created some area within warehouse, for all products which are inflammable or those kind of things, which have to be stored separately. The rest is put entirely randomly within the warehouse. Of course, the fact that to narrow your product will improve, for example, your density in picking. You know, on Amazon, you can buy a toothbrush, a book, a CD. You don't buy a CD anymore, but you could buy your pet food. You know, and obviously, once you're gonna do that, and the next time you're gonna order completely something different. Therefore, the randomness of the stowing comes through that, because there is no algorithm that you can match really what product they're gonna be sold together and ultimately come. If you are in a narrow range with a fewer item, that we're going to change that, the connection and the set together are going to get better. Secondly, and the size-wise, you may also have a more standardized product size, you know, and the pet food, for example, because you took it, you know, I worked before Amazon in bit and pet food, but you have maybe the bags of the big bags, and after you have all the tins basically, and that's it. And the box are pretty standardized, and everything is quite standardized. And in that case, if you have a more standardized product range, you may be better optimized in your fulfillment. I have no doubt about that. Yeah, absolutely. Particularly if you have less, indeed, if you have less SKU, particularly, which is one of the key elements as well. For Amazon, there are millions of SKU in the large fulfillment center. There are more than 1 million different SKU, which there is not that many manufacturer or even vendors usually, which are not distributor or retailer, which are managing more than even 50 or 70,000 SKU.
How does Amazon manage between 1P and third-party inventory in the fulfillment center?
There is no third-party. Let's to be clear, it's FBA inventory. Yeah, because there's no 3P inventory. They are not at Amazon. There is no any different. As I said, I described the process of putting inbound, but after inside, it's completely mixed up. Therefore, there is no difference between an item or treatment we know which is which, because one gonna have this specific label that I mentioned before, but there is no difference inside. They are stored side by side in the same bin sometimes. They are picked in the same round between 1P and 3P. Sometimes they go in the same package, by the way, to a customer which have ordered one of each. Therefore, there is absolutely no difference in treatment.
Right. And before we move on to outbound then, and last mile, when you look at the whole process from order to shipping or delivery, what is the split in the total cost of the package delivery in terms of, like, is it 10% on inbound, 20% on picking, or, you know, and like 70% on outbound? Like, how do you look at where the cost and real challenge actually lies in that process?
Yeah, first it depends if you speak about the fulfillment, just to give percentage at least, but fulfillment cost or the total cost, including picking up at the vendor and delivering to the customer, because obviously that's not going to be it's just a restricting. If you like, just in the box cost from the door of the fulfillment to the outbound door of the fulfillment, you get roughly 30% is spent in inbound and 70% in the outbound. Of the total cost of the process, roughly. It depends. It could be 25-75, and 2/3 of the outbound is going to be the packing activity, and 1/3 going to be the packing and shipping, and 1/3 is going to be the picking, basically, roughly. Now, again, that really depends which kind of building now, because it varies a lot. If you have a automated Kiva system, you know, you're gonna have a little bit less time in picking. There is almost no. There is a merge, by the way, between picking and stowing, because the same people are doing each of them. Therefore, that's blurred a little bit. But roughly, I think that would be that split, which means 50% is in the packing and shipping. Yeah.
And which is where the scale matters, right?
Yeah, yes or no. I don't know because the picking is where the biggest scale matters, or the density, because what we spoke about, the density in a delivery last mile, the density in picking is one of the key. Again, whether you are in automated or not, it's still an optimization, because if you are obviously in manual, that's matter a lot, because that's the time that the picker gonna spend and walking location to location. But even when you are automated, you know, it matters a lot, because if you bring the less movement that the robot are doing, more movement they can do, obviously, you know, and less distance do they cover. That's not the same cost, but more available there for another move. Therefore, if you can bring a shelf to a picker and have 15 items to pick at the same time on the shelf, is better than bringing a shelf and pick one and having to bring another one. The productivity will be better. Therefore, it's the reason why I think picking is maybe where the size matter much, or at least the density, not the size, because of course, as bigger you are, more challenging are your pick path. But if you have a lot of volume, you know that where it's matter much. For the rest, a little bit less, because the storing piece being random, people are storing in the same area. You know, when they go, they store, as they don't have any row, they just store in the same area. They don't move much when they store. And the packing, in that case, no, because it's a really scaling, it's not because you will have 10 packing table that will go faster than one packing table on its own. After the entire organization, yes, could optimize, as conveyor and automatically loading trucks, those kind of investment, which lowering your cost ultimately could help, basically.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to the pet food example. So it seems like if you really, organize your warehouse specifically for the category, you have some automated Kiva-like systems, to pick this stuff at density, you can really compete with Amazon inside the box, inside the warehouse, on efficiency for your category.
Oh yeah. No. I'm definitely convinced, and there are people which may be better efficient, particularly when their product category are very similar, product type are very similar, and I'm sure that you could be even more efficient than what Amazon does. Amazon is very efficient for the kind of structure of catalog they have. That's the key, I don't think Amazon has the best fulfillment cost ever. I think some people are able to reach a better fulfillment cost, but nobody could reach it with the same catalog and the offer they have. That's the difference. And unfortunately, you cannot reproduce. Therefore, you could decide. I was always saying, because when we started at one point, Amazon starting to do benchmarking with other, obviously, in each of the country we have our benchmark activities, end to end. And after you start finding people which can compete with Amazon, and usually the best competitor of Amazon are the ones which are specialists. Now it's a choice, not made maybe voluntarily, but you will never be the size of Amazon if you are a specialist, because to sell hundreds of billions of pet food, that's not possible. But yes, you could be very efficient in doing so and become a very strong competitor. And basically in those benchmarking activities, every time, and because originally we were benchmarking against people doing like Amazon, the online seller of everything. And obviously in that case, we were usually more efficient than most of it in every country, most of it. But after, when we start to benchmark with specialists, because the benchmarking activities we are going to, let's benchmark Zalando for the shoes and apparel, for example. Now, of course, that was tighter, because shoes and apparel, to take as an example, Zalando was pretty efficient just to do that. Therefore, and it's where we had to develop, is the reason why also we developed some fulfillment center, which we are looking to those products, because we discovered that they were really rarely cross-selling, they were, but it was less important. It was better to optimize the warehouse. But those kind of things, yes, I'm definitely convinced that some people being specialists could reach better cost on their kind of product.
Can you elaborate on how Amazon's strategy with last mile and with carriers has evolved over the last decade or two?
Yeah, our carriers were involved, not much, clearly. Historically, Amazon has always worked with several carriers in every country. That's over time. Of course, we started in every country with the postal network, particularly in Europe. La Poste in France, Romain in the UK, DHL strike Deutsche Post, because Deutsche Post bought DHL in 1999 from memory, but therefore just at the time when Amazon started that. And we started from that. After we expanded by the need of more capacity get some competition between the carrier, we included other carrier depending on how they were available also by country, and having already a network of carrier, and up to the point that in the end of 2000, in the 10s basically, 2008-9, we were starting to face issue, particularly on the next day delivery, because Amazon started a Prime program in Europe as a one-day service, not as of today as many people think, particularly due to the recent announcement in the US, where they moved from 1 day to 2 day, from 2 day to 1 day. But Europe has been in 1 day since day one in Prime. I mean, when we started in 2007 and 8, Prime in the three main countries, we started as a 1 day service. And that's creating a lot of pressure on the 1 day delivery in each of the country. And we were 2 years later, as Prime was growing very aggressively in each of the country, we're starting to face some capacity issues. What pushed us to think about why should we not invest in that? Because no carrier are really investing, or at least succeeding to invest properly in doing that job. And therefore, it's how that started, basically. And in the UK, particularly, that was one of the first time that we started in initiatives not in the US. Therefore, that I like to remind that, because my team and I proposed to do it and run the first pilot in the UK, because the UK was a market which was a very hurt by the service, basically. Royal Mail was not a one-day service, and first class was not, and indeed, and many carriers tried and didn't succeed to deliver what we needed. Therefore, we started to do it, and now with the other, not really. We started to do it because we were really facing a capacity issue, to which carriers have decided not to respond. Indeed, first, I mean, we should be clear about that. Therefore, we were candid to say we're going to start, and very early carriers like Royal Mail knew about it. But and ironically, I would say maybe they didn't believe it that we will. I tell you that some of the carrier was at that time, for a long time, this initiative was grown out of our transportation department. Therefore, I was the vice president of transportation for Europe. And at the same time, I was negotiating with all of those carriers. And on the other hand, I was growing these initiatives with our own team. And I faced, for a few years, that I was going to negotiation. And they were telling me, oh, we heard that we've been starting. And I was justifying both. But most of the time, people were not realizing what we were doing and not thinking, by the way, we would be successful. And even some of them told me at that time, that maybe it's good that we do, because like that, we will realize how difficult it is, Therefore, every time that they were missing their target, every time they were trying to get improvement, and we were trying to argue and push back and negotiating, indeed, they were kind, but you don't know what that costs, and now they were kind, some told us that they would be good because we're going to feel it now, which, by the way, yes, we feel. We understood how it worked, but ultimately, I think nobody really believed that we will be successful in growing this network, which means that helps a lot, because there was no animosity, and unfortunately, when they realized that we were quite successful and doing quite a large number, that was too late. That was too late for them to react. And yeah, for sure, if you ask now Royal Mail, if you ask DHL, La Poste, they will not tell you that they are happy that we've been doing our own last mile, but they didn't do anything to fight against. And when they're trying to be worried about it, was already too late. We were engaged, we were efficient, and now there was a kind of what do they do? Put them out of business or continue to deal with us, however, and manage it aside, basically.
At what density or scale does it make sense to actually insource the last mile?
First, it's a difficult question on several aspects. First is it depends how your strategy could be, because I'm going to give you a number that was a funny number, which created this idea, by the way, which was the first time that in 2007, I just took over the transportation in Europe, and one of my first negotiations in one of the carriers in the UK, by the way, during the negotiation was not going well, and one of the MD of one of these companies told me, oh, you know what, Philippe, when you will be 60 million parcels a year in the UK, you will be able to run your own business. And at that time, we are not 60 million in the UK, but of course, based on the number we had and the projection, we would be soon. But I wrote that somewhere and I parked it basically. And 2 years later, literally, because after the crisis, the acceleration of the sales at Amazon really went after the 2007 and 8, that really started up and Prime program helping and so on. And 2 years later, I'm thinking, wow, but we are now just above this 60 million parcel. Should we start looking at it? It's the reason why I asked some of my business analysts to have a drill down into, could you look at it if it was just a word like that or it was real? And indeed, they came back and saying, yeah, no, that makes some sense. We can almost optimize people every day, almost, in a town like Glasgow, because we did the analysis on Glasgow. I didn't want to do London, which was a bit more obvious. I wanted a medium-sized city to have an analysis, because if it works in London, it doesn't tell me where it works elsewhere. When it was working in Glasgow, that tell me, of course, in London it will work, and many other cities in the UK it will work. It's the reason why he did it, and they say, yes, that makes sense. Now the number, I don't even remember the real number as density in package per square meter, but it also depends on which city you are in, basically. And but to give you, that was the reference point that I kept for a long time, was this 60 million, and would be, is it 60 million, is it 70, 80 million, I don't know, but for sure you need to be, in any European country, you need to be multi-million parcel, except obviously if you decide to be very local, you know, and because of course that was to have a network of a country level. Now if you start to say, I want to deliver in Paris only, you may not need obviously 70 million in Paris. You can start much lower than that. And but the number as it's so, I don't remember the real number of parcel by square feet, but people could do easily the analysis of what they have today. And I believe it should be around 2 or 3 parcels per square kilometer square meter per day, and you start to have something to deal with, basically.
Mm. How do you look at the challenge of Amazon owning the last mile in the US versus FedEx and larger players versus Europe?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because it's difficult to call out. Today, Amazon still don't have the network to cover the full US anyway, and it will take a long while to have it. You have exactly this question about the density and the location where Amazon deploy. And my belief is the smart way would be to still keep both. Because, you know, if you consider the less dense area of a country, you are in the US, you are in Europe, is the same, or within country in Europe is the same. At one point, there is a density by which you have no benefit to go on your own, each people going on their own, and it's better than one is going and doing the job for all the people selling in this area. This one will have the best cost, basically, and every retailer would have to accept the cost of it, basically, and the cost of this delivery being higher than elsewhere. At the opposite as well, when you take the big cities, the very, very dense, there is a level by which that adding more parcel doesn't help anyway. You know, there is a level of density which is pretty high, but you could add more. There is a time, even if the guy was delivering in his own area without even taking his car back or his truck back, he will still need the time to take the parcel, go to the door, ring the bell, and stuff like that. And at a level there, you could add more. The benefit is almost nothing. In that case, Amazon work with both, basically. Today, Amazon work with both. Even in the area where they are, if for some reason they are beyond this density, they may give to another carrier, because they don't want to set a new route in the same route, split the route in two. There is a scale effect. You know, for example, if you have a good route, which you can deliver 200 parcels in the day, and you're there of 8 hours, which is a very, very good route, by the way, you know, very dense. But if you are to 50, you're struggling, because where goes the 50? Therefore, it's better to give the 50 to another carrier, which may help this density and doesn't impact yours, because you know you're maxed out at 200. If you have 400, you will keep the 2 rows. And this basically, if you want to be optimized all the time, you need to manage these two. And in that case, you will always need partner to do it. I believe for the Amazon business, the best way for carriers like UPS and FedEx is to work really in partnership with Amazon, understanding a little bit where they will need, and obviously adapt their rate to that, But Amazon will not do better. One of the points is, for example, in the low density, in my view, is there will be a rate which will be more expensive than the high density, and Amazon will have to accept to pay more those carriers to do it, which ultimately should have a better cost than Amazon would, because obviously Amazon plus all the other parcel would be always better than just Amazon alone to deliver there.
Mm. How do you see this relationship evolving then between the two? You mentioned how they should be working together, but obviously there's, the FedEx or the carriers might not be happy working with them. How do you see that evolving over the next, say, decade?
Yeah, I think it will that maybe 1 or 2 will drop, and of course you quote 3 in that case, but in the US there is also USPS, which is there, by the way, and I think it's a matter. Of course, there may not be enough room for everyone. That's a fact. Therefore, yes, 1 or 2. I think FedEx gave up a bit already with Amazon in the US, and I believe there will be a room for 1 or 2. Per country, which we work in partnership. And when I say in partnership, that doesn't mean agreeing or whatever. No, it's just making sure that giving a right number of parcel, where you don't sit. We did it in the UK back in 2015, 2016, when Amazon Logistics was already big in the UK. We're working very closely with DPD in the UK, for example. Now it's a matter of course, this business, as you bring the network, will not grow extensively. However, remember that Amazon is still doing 15 to 25%, depending on the region, growth. Therefore, every year, Amazon add a fifth or a quarter of his business to his existing business, which is, by the way, generating more. Ultimately, every year, you get a little bit more despite your share decrease. For some of the business. Is the reason why that due to that, I don't think Amazon will do 100% of their own parcel, because economically it will not work. Now, if in a country, every carrier decide not to work with Amazon for whatever reason and they can, yes, maybe Amazon will do it. And yeah, it won't be optimized for the 10 to 15% that they will never have the density, but they will do it themselves. And for the country where a carrier will be smart enough to say, okay, I know I'm not going to have the best parcel at the middle of the city, or very few I'm going to have it, because I will, but I work in partnership. They give me forecast pretty accurate, and they guarantee me at least a certain level of business while they are planning, and I will work around that. I think people will still be able to grow their own business. Now, it will never be as good as it was many years ago, except one thing, that if you compare on a long range, I can tell you that Amazon Royal Mail is doing more parcel today with Amazon than they were doing in 2005. Which you're going to tell me, yeah, it's 15 years ago. Yeah, of course. But and despite that, in 2005, Royal Mail was 90% of the Amazon business, and today they're maybe 20, But that's not what matters. What matters is the total parcel they've been given. And I'm sure today they've been given more parcel than they were at that time. That's what some carriers should think about. Is maybe not, of course, they lost a lot of opportunity, but they're still growing their own business.
Mm. How have you seen the cost per parcel decline over, 2 decades?
It will not. It will not. In delivery, it will not. I don't believe the cost will decline at all. It's not because I believe today the level that we reach in many places. In Europe or in the US are close to the optimal, the level of e-commerce in general are close to the optimal for many carriers, by the way, and for Amazon as well. Therefore, this cost will only grow by the fuel, the people wages and stuff like that. There are a few innovations which are coming to help, like locker and pickup point, try to help but still, again, I don't believe that will decline. I think it will be kept as more as possible flat still for a few years, and after slightly increase over time.
So you think that Amazon and the carriers will have to wear this, or Amazon specifically will have to wear the increase in the cost potentially if they go to like 1 hour delivery?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a no-brainer. I mean, the 1 hour delivery or 2 hour delivery increase a lot the cost of delivery by far. Even the evening delivery that we have, I mean, reducing that's just mathematical. I mean, but reducing the window when you deliver, that decrease that not decrease the density indeed, because if you are able, the problem is in a delivery network you have to come at least to come from the place where you pick the parcel. And what is called the stand time in this business, which is the time between your location where you pick up the parcel and the first delivery. This one has to be amortized on the round. The rest could be very dense, but this first part you need to build it. You don't deliver all the time around your delivery station. You have to do 20 miles, sometimes 30 miles, and this 30 miles, even at sometimes could be an hour time. And this hour you don't deliver any parcel. Therefore, it's the reason why that as more you reduce this window, and worse is your productivity in delivering. It's the reason I don't believe in a decrease in cost, and I don't believe today that we see a decrease in cost in the parcel delivery.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for Amazon's network evolution going forward?
Like it has been all the time, scaling. Making sure they have they are able to grow as fast as they need, required by their business need, at the same obviously quality and cost. Because you can grow and spend a lot of money, of course, but that's going to make your cost jumping. Or you can grow and sacrifice keeping your cost low by sacrificing the quality, but that is not an Amazon way either, and that you have a big risk of endangering your business. And but that's, I think it's always been like that. I think if I take my 17 years at Amazon, that has been my biggest worry: hiring the number of people you need and the quality of the people you need. Not compromising while you grow, I believe, is what many companies do very badly. Many companies. There is a range of companies which are very good to maintain a good level of business, growing 2-3% and very efficiently, and even saving costs and so on. I believe there are many companies like that, by the way, which are doing a great job and delivering great results. There are companies which want to be aggressive in the growth, but unfortunately sacrificing something, either their bottom line, and that sometimes you can hear some company we say we're going to slow down the growth because they know that they can cope with it, and they see their costs going completely in all directions, or the quality, which is the most frequent. And carrier have been the very bad student into that. Carrier, for me, from my experience, is where I've seen the most people which wanted to grow but are not able to grow, and every time they were getting a new contract, a lot of business coming, basically 6 months, 9 months later, there was discussion about the quality and there was a problem. And we had a few like that in the UK, particularly with Amazon, where people were eager but didn't know how to do it. And ultimately, when you don't know, you're not structured for it, you fail. And I believe is where Amazon is one of the best in class in the world, is doing that, by the way. It's the reason why, back to our comment on the pet food, yes, you will find people doing fantastic job at a cheaper cost, but you don't find people growing 25%, doing and growing at the size of Amazon doing it. That's the difference. With the size, you get the disadvantage, and Amazon has still been able to cope with this growth at their level.